Now, although there is nothing wrong with representing yourself based on all of those attributes I've defined, there's a much bigger part to who you are. You see, your self-image comes from understanding of self. From my experience, and this is a subjective opinion, I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but this is an opinion that I believe in. I believe that each and every one of us and each and every one of you has three parts to your personality. There are three levels of understanding. I call this levels of consciousness or levels of awareness. Most of us believe in the physical level of consciousness, so we see things based on the physical. However, if I was to describe myself, I would tell you that I am a spiritual being. I'm an immortal being. I'm a spiritual being. The core essence of who I am is spiritual. The best part of me you can't see because it's spiritual. Now that spirit lives in a physical body. I wear this form that I have that is called my body, and that's what you can see. But my physical body is not the real me. It's a garment that I have to wear in this world to be able to live and interact and operate and experience and feel. Remember that all of us are going through a journey. We call that journey life. A time to be born and a time to exit, or a time to die. In between that journey, we have a body. At the end of our lives, we live our body, we discard the body, and our spirit lives on. So I'm a spiritual being. I live in a physical body, but to operate and experience the laws of life and the laws of nature and the universal laws, I've been given a mind. So at the three levels of who I am, one is spiritual, one is mental, one is physical. At the lowest level, I'll begin with the lowest level, is physical. Most people describe themselves and most people attribute their confidence based on the physical plane. So it's usually based on what do I have? What do I look like? What do I do? What do I get? So it's all external. It's all material. If you build your self-confidence on the material or the physical plane alone, I can promise you of one thing. At some point in your life, you're going to recognize that which you have and you hold on to externally, when it's taken away from you, you find that your self-confidence, your self-esteem will be somewhat shattered. You have to transcend beyond the physical plane and move to the mental plane, because you see, the mental plane is where you start to recognize these beautiful gifts you've been given, these higher faculties. This is where you start to recognize that you have an intellect and you have emotions, and that your emotional state, which is really what confidence is, your emotional state comes as a result of how you use your intellect, how you use your intellectual faculties of the mind. Think about this. When we say confidence, we say it's belief in self. What is belief? What is that confidence? It's a feeling. It's an emotion you have. You feel positive. You feel excited. You feel passionate. You feel that you trust yourself. You believe in yourself. All of those are emotions. It's a feeling you have. And so to get the right feeling, you simply need to learn how to use your intellectual faculties. I gave you some of them earlier on. The two that I'm suggesting that are very important to develop self-confidence is your memory and your imagination. And let me talk about those two very briefly because they're powerful. Your memory is a part of your mind that stores information. Your memory and your brain work together. They're not the same, but they work together. Your brain has the ability to connect to the memory. It can think of things in the past, which is your history, and it can think of things in the present, which is right now. Your brain, on the other hand, does not have the ability to think into the future. To do that, it needs your imagination. Most of us have been trained, and most of us were raised in such a way that we weren't taught how to use the memory. The memory function of the mind should only be used in a purposeful and a constructive way. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, most of us think our memory is for storing information. But you have to be selective about what information you store in your memory. Because the emotion you feel is based on how you're using your mind. We're going to have good times in life, and we're going to have what I call lean times. My father used to say that. The good times will build confidence. The lean times, if you're not careful, will reduce your confidence. So I grew up with this idea that you should perhaps make note of everything that has happened in your life and you store it in your memory. I used to even go as far as journaling the things that I had done that were not good. So people say, well, you should journal your day. I have a different view today from what I had in the past. Nowadays, I teach people and I encourage people to only journal the positive things. Now, let me segue a little bit. Here is what Paul, the great teacher, said. Paul said, anything that is good, anything that is just, anything that is pure, anything that is praiseworthy, anything that is honest, anything that is worth taking note of, anything that is excellent. Think on those things. Meaning, you should only be reminding yourself of the positives in your life. Now, that is not to suggest that in any case that you should walk around living as though there are no negative events happening. Absolutely. But you must see things in perspective, meaning when something negative happens, perhaps you try something and it doesn't work, you sit down and you review what you did right and what you did wrong. You get the feedback, you course correct, and you move forward. There's too much in the future for you to keep looking back to the past and holding on to the mistakes and the failures you've had. So a lot of people have poor self-confidence because every time they pull up a picture of who they are, that picture reminds them of something they did wrong. The reason is because they're using their memory incorrectly. So if you want to develop your self-confidence, the first step is to use your memory right. And that begins by deciding that from today, all you're going to do is have successes and victories stored in your memory. I have a book. I call it my victory book, my success book. In the book, I make a note of all of my successes, everything that I've done well. I record it. The reason I record it is because whenever I'm actually feeling down and my self-confidence is a little bit rattled, whenever I feel poor in spirit or low in spirit, I pull out my journal and I look back at my notes. And in a very short period of time, I'm a shouting optimist again. What I had to do, I took it a step further. The same journal that I have, where I've had my successes and victories written down, I converted those words into pictures, and I've stored those pictures in what I call my victory and my success vision board, so that on my phone, on my tablet, I now have pictures of what I've achieved, so that as I go through the day, I can just flick through and see what I've done well. By doing that, I'm now using my memory to retrieve things that I've done well. When I remember things that I've done well, my self-confidence increases. When my self-confidence increases, I find that my self-esteem increases. When my self-esteem increases, I take more action. So I would say to use your memory intelligently is the first step in developing self-confidence. Now, in order for you to do that, one of the things that you have to learn how to do is you have to start pulling together evidences of success. And that success doesn't have to be something big. You wake up in the morning, you make your bed. You wake up in the morning, perhaps you tidy your room, you keep things clean and tidy, because you see, how you do anything is really how you do everything. And by developing that habit starts to get what I call lodged in your subconscious mind. And now you're starting to form this image of yourself as someone who is orderly, someone who is clean, someone who is tidy, someone who can be trusted, someone who has integrity. That starts to build your confidence in yourself. And all of that is being programmed into your memory so that when the time comes, you can look back and you can remember what you've done well. The second way you can use your mind is through your imagination. With your imagination, you can replay the past, but you can also pre-play the future. You can look into the future through your mind. We call it vision, or sometimes some people call it insight. When you see with your eyes, that's called sight, is a function of using your eyes. When you see through your mind, using your imagination into the future, we call that vision. We call that insight. So with your imagination, you can pre-play the future. Now, this is interesting, but also very powerful. Remember this. Let's assume that you have low self-confidence as a basketball player. Let's use basketball, for example. You're still learning the craft. But in your mind, well, let's start with your memory. You've just started learning how to play, but you don't have confidence because you don't have any evidence of you doing anything well. Well, in the absence of real evidence of success, what you do is you move into your mental faculty of imagination, and you use your imagination to create a picture of you doing exceptionally well in your imagination sometime in the future. By doing that and repeating that, what you find is that it starts to create an impression in your subconscious mind that you've already achieved it. And your brain believes it, because the brain cannot distinguish between what's real and what's been vividly imagined. But the key here is you have to imagine with intensity, you have to imagine with emotion, you have to imagine with frequency, whereby you convince yourself through your imagination where you're looking into the future and you're seeing yourself actually playing exceptionally well and doing very well. Now, here's what's beautiful about that experience and that process. By developing that skill, it builds belief. The belief then allows you to take action, because by you replaying this picture of yourself, doing really well and people congratulating you and celebrating your success, that will push you to then take action so that you then find that the fear that was holding you back, you have the courage to then take action. When you take action, you now create results. Now, the results you create then become the evidence that gets lodged in your memory. That result you've created then helps you reinforce the potential that you have, which is unlimited. And that makes you feel like $1,000,000, where you feel, wow, I can do this. It's a self-reinforcement process. So you take action, but the action you're taking has been instigated or been stimulated based on you using your imagination. You create results. The results are lodged in your memory now because it's something you've done physically. As a result of you doing it physically, you can then start developing a little bit more belief in yourself. So the two ways of developing your self-confidence is by using your memory and your imagination. Let's move into tactics now, which is daily steps that you can take to improve your self-confidence. Now, I want you to look at these tactics as tactics to improve your self-image. Because if you improve your self-image, your self-confidence improves automatically, and your self-esteem improves automatically. So, self-confidence and self-esteem are what I call effects. The true cause is your self-image. So a lot of people focus and say, well, I have a problem, and they focus on the problem they have. Unfortunately, most people don't recognize the difference between symptoms and problems. Now, if I met you and you said, I have low self-confidence, my response to you would be, that's not your problem. That's a symptom of an underlying problem. The underlying problem is a poor self-image. If you focus on the self-image, the symptom disappears. So here are 10 simple strategies that you can apply every day. And I would encourage you to apply this every day. And this will help you improve your self-image but automatically it would help you improve your self-confidence. And this can be applied to any area of life. Number one, you must know what you want. Clarity precedes mastery. You must be clear about what you want. And by that, what I simply mean, you must have a goal. You can't say, I want to develop self-confidence as a blank statement. That is not a goal. It's an objective. You can't measure it. You have to be specific by saying, I like to develop self-confidence in a particular area. But you've got to take it a little bit further, because you've got to make it specific, measurable. It's got to be achievable. You've got to have the ability for it to be real and for it to have a timeline. We'll go back to the example of a basketball player. If you've never played basketball and you're saying, well, my self-confidence will be where it should be if I can play like Michael Jordan, that's okay. But if you then give yourself a time frame where you say, I want to play like Michael Jordan in 6 months, my response to you would be, that's not realistic. Yes, you have a time frame, 6 months. Yes, you're specific because you've said, I want to play like Michael Jordan, so we can measure that. Yes, you have all this basic criteria, but I would say to you, well, it's not realistic. And therefore, it's not achievable, because you need time to develop those skills. So I would simply say the first thing you must do is you must know what you want, which is decide what you want. Decide what you want to be confident in. Decide specifically what it would look like. You might say, I want to be able to do a few free throws. I like to be able to do a few passes. I like to play in this particular style. That is a specific goal. The second step is you must take that goal, because that goal you've described is interesting. It can be measured. But the most, in my opinion, the reason why most people do not achieve their goals is because we are very good at deciding on what we call our to-do goals, or to have goals, what we want to do, what we want to have. We struggle in recognizing that that equation is incomplete. It's not incorrect, but it's just incomplete. There's a missing part to that equation, and that is your to become goals, your to be goals. There's a sequence: be, do, have. To have something you've never had before, you have to become someone that you are not. To do something you've never done before, you have to first of all develop the skills, the talent, the character of the kind of person deserving of that you want to do. So the second step is, once you've decided what you want, you must convert that description into what I call your ideal self-image. Now, one of the things you'll find is when you've described it, and you can create that ideal self-image by asking yourself a series of questions. For example, what kind of person is deserving of this particular goal? Or are there people who are already alive, and how do they live? What qualities do they have? What characteristics? What virtues? What traits do they have? And with that, you can start to form an image of what you would look like when you've achieved that goal. Once you've described that self-image, it has to be in writing. You must then create what I call self-talk. Self-talk is words that you say to yourself. I like to describe it in this way. Self-talk is saying to yourself what you wish other people would say positively about you. So you must create a self-talk vocabulary, maybe a few statements that you repeat every day, and those reinforce and those stimulate and they encourage and they inspire you. But the goal is to direct your thought process and your mental process towards that self-image. So, for example, you might say things such as, I can do all things. You can say, I wake up every morning without giving any thought to the possibility of failure. You can say things such as, I'm great. I'm born with greatness within me. I have a potential that is unlimited. You can say, I was created by universal and infinite intelligence, who knows all, sees all, is all, and resides within me. And therefore, I believe I have everything that I need within me to be successful, to be happy, to be hopeful. And those become what I call self-talk, and every day you repeat it to yourself and it makes you feel good. The reason self-talk is important is because every one of us talks to ourselves. Unfortunately, if you study people's internal thoughts, you'll be shocked, because most people who lack self-confidence are saying and speaking to themselves internally through internal speech and saying things such as, oh, the last time you did this, you made a mistake. So we're always affirming ourselves negatively. The most important thing about self-confidence is that when you're about to maybe carry out the act that will boost your self-image, your self-confidence, the single most important thing you must do in that instance is not to listen to yourself, but to talk to yourself. Because at that moment in time, fear and doubt always comes in. And if you listen to yourself, your mind, because your mind is somewhat, or your brain, I should say, not your mind, your brain is somewhat designed to protect you. At that point in time, there's fear, this emotion of fear. And your mind, or brain rather, your brain will try to remind you of things because it'll go back to your memory and it'll tell you, well, are you sure you can do this? Are you sure you have the ability to do this? It'll come up with reasons. And if you listen to yourself, your self-doubt increases. But if you talk to yourself positively using self-talk, your faith increases. So the key is self-talk is a pathway to building your faith in yourself. Number 4 is a personal statement. A personal statement is a statement you've written down about yourself, the person you want to be. And it should be written in the first person language. Not I will become, no, I am. I am. Because you see, in the universal mind of consciousness, there is no time and there is no space. So everything is in the now. So you say, I am. So create a personal statement, and every day you can recite this statement. Number 5 is what I call mental rehearsal. In your mind, you must have mental, what I call practice, whereby you see yourself doing that which you want to be doing in the future and doing it successfully. Again, this uses your imagination. You're creating the future. So daily you sit down, you shut your eyes, keep your eyes open, whichever makes you most comfortable, and you go into your imagination and you see yourself being, doing, having, enjoying the experience in the future and doing that which you want to develop self-confidence in. See yourself doing it exceptionally well. The next step is what I call mental movies. I like to use the reference where I say, imagine that you have a room in your house, and that room is a screening room. It's got a theater-style television, and there's a beautiful, comfortable chair. Imagine yourself walking into that room or that space, sitting down comfortably and relaxing, and the screen comes on, and there's a movie playing. You're the director, you're the screenwriter, you're the artist, and that screen is showing a movie of you in the future. But you're doing what you hope and what you wish and what you want. And you have the ability at any time to change the script. So what you do in mental movies is sit back and watch a movie of yourself. With mental movies, you're seeing. With mental rehearsal, you're doing. That's the difference. So with one of them, you're using your sense of sight to see. With the other, you actually live in the experience. Number 6. I gave you number 6 already. Number 7 is what I call goal-directed actions. And that simply means take action. You have a goal. You've created this self-image. You have your self-talk. You have your personal statements. You're doing your mental rehearsal. You're doing your mental movies. All of that is being done mentally. It's now time to take action physically. Take action. Act as though you have already achieved that. Someone says, or once said, act as though it were impossible to fail. In other words, act as if you already have it. And this is a principle used by actors. They give them a script, and some of the actors become so passionate about the script that they act as if they are the characters themselves. And we watch the films and we say, this is amazing. Why? Because the person who is acting wasn't performing as though this was just a movie. No, they were giving you the experience of a lifetime. So you have to start taking actions that will lead you towards the fulfillment of what you want, which is to build your self-confidence. Number 8. When you've taken action, as you imagine, you'll get some feedback. So number 8 is you must have the ability to sit down and review your performance. I usually say at the end of every day, you should do 2 things. Ask yourself the question, what did I do right? Secondly, ask yourself the question, what could I have done differently? The reason for that question is so that you can learn and celebrate what you did well. And for those things that you could have done differently, you can course correct. It gives you the opportunity to make corrective actions, which leads us to number 8, which is you must take corrective actions. Number 7, you take action. Number 8, you review. Number 9, you take corrective actions to course correct. And finally, number 10, you celebrate. Now, celebration is important. You have to find ways to reward yourself for small steps of progress. Whenever you've done something well, celebrate, acknowledge yourself. And here is what's interesting and important as well. Don't wait for people to celebrate you. They might never show up. The great writer says that your rejoicing should be in yourself. In other words, you be the one who observes what you've done well. Sit down, get yourself a cup of tea, get yourself a nice cake, a glass of wine, buy yourself a nice meal, buy yourself a nice dress, however you want to celebrate. Sing, dance, but celebrate your small steps of accomplishments. Because you see, any one of us can achieve anything we want if we're willing to take one step at a time. Let me summarize everything we've talked about. I started up by saying that if you want to improve your self-image, your self-confidence, you have to start by improving your self-image. To improve your self-image, you have to understand yourself. And part of that study of yourself might require a change of your self-image. I said, well, there are 2 ways you can start to alter and increase your self-confidence. You can use your memory, you can use your imagination. Then we finalized by talking about specific tactics and daily activities, and I gave you 10. Number 1, I said you've got to know what you want. In other words, you have to set a goal. Number 2, I said you need to, with that goal, develop a self-image. Number 3, once you've developed that self-image, you must then develop what I call self-talk, which is specific words that you say about yourself. Number 4, you must then convert or create a personal statement. Number 5, mental rehearsal, which is go into your mind and start to see yourself in your mind doing and being and having what you want. Then we move to the next part, which is number 6 or number 7. I've lost count. I said, you must practice what I call mental movies, which is in your mind, you must see yourself, not doing, but just see yourself in the future experiencing that perfect life, doing whatever you want to do. Then you must take action. It's easy to think and hope and wish and strategize and plan. But remember that faith is dead without works. So it's not what you say, it's what you do. So you must take action. And when you've taken action, you must then have the patience to review the actions you've taken, get the feedback, course correct your actions, and once you've course corrected, celebrate what you've done well. And I believe if you do all, and if you take these steps, I believe very much that it's very easy and very possible that you can improve your self-image. And I hope you do. I wish you all the best.